The crowd cheered for him. So young, so handsome, and so victorious. Conradin Hohenstaufen rode into the Eternal City in July 1268, celebrating his triumph in the Battle of Arno and hoping for new military successes. Good news also came from the island of Sicily, where a rebellion had erupted, indicating that the people were unhappy with the French usurper's presence. All rights to the throne belonged to Conradin, and he was advancing towards his coveted goal, accompanied by his knights. He had less than 3 months left to live. The fair-haired boy was born in Wolfstein Castle in March 1252. He belonged to the most famous and influential German family of the time, the Hohenstaufens. Conradin's grandfather was Emperor Frederick II of the Holy Roman Empire. It's possible that his father might have obtained the same title, but he died of malaria. The orphan Conradin was proclaimed King of Jerusalem and Sicily, but these titles remained nominal. The problem was that Conradin's uncle, Manfred, the illegitimate son of the emperor, had crowned himself King of Sicily. The self-proclaimed rule of the illegitimate offspring didn't sit well with Rome, and Pope Innocent IV declared Manfred a usurper. Tensions were running high on the Apennine Peninsula. King Manfred refused to submit to the Pope, and his army won one victory after another against the papal forces. Rome cursed him, while contradictory reports about Conradin's health arrived from Germany. In fact, given the high child mortality rate characteristic of the Middle Ages, it wouldn't have surprised anyone if the young heir to the throne had died before reaching adulthood. Incidentally, Manfred later justified his actions by claiming that he had been misled by false rumors. He believed his nephew had died, which is why he took the bold step of crowning himself. But when the truth came to light, Manfred promised to relinquish the throne of Sicily to Conradin as soon as he came of age. However, Rome no longer wanted to see any representatives of the Hohenstaufen family on the peninsula. Such restless neighbors couldn't guarantee peace, and their appetite for conquest was well known throughout Europe. They constantly needed new victories. It would be safer to expel the Hohenstaufens from Italian lands altogether. But how? The Pope reached out to the brother of the King of France, Charles of Anjou. This man had proven himself a brave warrior, having participated in the Crusades, and above all, he was extremely ambitious. The pontiff promised Charles support in obtaining the Sicilian crown in exchange for his obedience. Essentially, they were offering the new king a puppet role, but Charles accepted. He had his own reasons for leaving France. At the same time, young Conradin was being raised at the court of another uncle, the Duke of Bavaria. Unfortunately for the young Hohenstaufen, his guardian was failing miserably in his duties. He couldn't secure the prince's rightful title as King of Germany and only managed to obtain for him the Duchy of Swabia. This was an unimaginable setback in rights and opportunities, especially considering that Conradin was entitled to several thrones. In the early days of January 1266, Charles of Anjou arrived in Rome, where he was crowned as the Lord of Sicily. The pontiff himself blessed him for war against Manfred, and by mid-January, Charles was on the march with his army to confront the forces of the usurper. Events unfolded rapidly. By the end of February, the Battle of Benevento took place. There, Conradin's uncle suffered defeat at the hands of the French, and Manfred himself was killed. His family was captured and imprisoned in a fortress, where most of them would spend many long years. In March, the Anjou puppet was receiving congratulations in Naples, the city he chose to declare the capital of his new kingdom. Naturally, Germany was not idle. The news of the French seizure of lands belonging to the Hohenstaufen stirred society into action. Conradin, the rightful heir to the Sicilian throne, set out to gather an army. He was only 15 when he rode out to reclaim his lands with 3,000 knights. Rome responded in a peculiar way. Conradin was excommunicated. The young man brushed off the news. What did an interdict matter when his inheritance was at stake? With determination, he pressed forward. The French dispatched troops against Conradin, but they were defeated in the Battle of the Arno Valley. In July of 1268, the true king of Sicily entered Rome. Although the pontiff made no acknowledgement of his arrival, The ordinary citizens of the Eternal City rejoiced. The young king quickly gained supporters. He had the truth on his side. He did not behave like a conqueror in Italian lands, unlike the French, and of course, he was young and handsome. Unfortunately, the Hohenstaufen was doomed. In late August, the decisive battle took place at Tagliacozzo. Despite having the numerical advantage, Conradin's army was defeated. The military prowess of the French clearly surpassed that of the German forces. Realizing that his cause was lost, Conradin attempted to flee. The 16-year-old rightful king of Sicily was captured in September of the same year. The valuable prisoner was handed over to Charles of Anjou. Astonishingly, the usurper held a trial for Conradin. He was accused of treason and, at the end of October, was executed in the market square of Naples, along with 11 of his most loyal supporters. The news of this execution sent shockwaves through Europe. The Hohenstaufen family, once a source of terror for their enemies, had been extinguished. Yet Charles of Anjou did not enjoy the fruits of his dubious victory for long. By 1282, he was forced to abandon his new territories. As a result of the Sicilian Vespers, a rebellion that rose against the French, 2,000 foreigners were massacred in Palermo alone. The blood Charles spilled ultimately led to even greater bloodshed.